Alright, boys and girls, today's lesson is lesson 3-6, and today we're going to work with time. So, let's get right at it. Let's turn to page 179 in your workbook. So, to get a better understanding of time, I mean, you all should know this, just in case you don't. When there's two hands on a clock, the small hand always points to the hour, and the larger hand, or longer hand, however you would look at it, points to the minute. Okay? Once it reaches a minute, so if we have 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, my writing is awful, 10, 11. Once your arrow, or your hand, they call it, goes past a number, that means that it's on its way to the next number. Okay? So if this hand here, and if I drew it better, the 3 really should be there. If I'm just past the 3, that means it's after 3 o'clock and I'm working my way to 4 o'clock. Okay? If you go in minutes, 15 minutes would cover 3 numbers. So 1, 2, and 3 would be 15 minutes because it's 5 minutes between each number. Okay, another 15 minutes will get you to 6. Another 15 minutes will get you to 9. And another 15 minutes get you back to the hour. So that's how you break things up to 15 minutes. So working with that, knowing that, the first part says time to 15 minutes. It says write the time on the digital clock. Then write how to say the time. Not sure I like how that's worked. But anyways, this one, the first one here, if you look, the big hand is right on 12. And I'm sorry, the small hand, I guess you would say, the small hand is on the 12, and the fatter one, but it's shorter, the short hand. Let's go short and long. How's that? The long hand is on the 12, the short hand is on the 9. Short hand is pointing right at 9, and the long hand is pointing right at 12. So that means it's going to be a 0. So it'll be 9, and then 0, 0, because 9 o'clock. It's exactly 9. If that big hand or long hand starts moving further, it'll be after 9 o'clock. And it could go 59 minutes before it changes the large hand, the big hand's the small hand. I'm struggling with this. The short hand before the short hand gets to 10. But that short hand will slowly move closer to 10 as the longer hand works its way around back to 12. Okay, so if you were to write this, you would write 9 o'clock. Okay, next one. It says write the time on the digital clock, then write down how to say the time. I'm not going to write all about it. I'm just going to kind of go over the time with you. These should be pretty simple. Okay, the long hand is pointing at the 12, so we know it's a 0 at the end. And the short hand is pointing to the 11, so it's 11. I'm going to put this back to black. Same thing here. The 12 is taking the big hand, so it's 0. The short hand is pointing to the 1. Here we have the short hand pointing to the 6, and the long hand pointing to 0. And you know how to say all those. You'd write 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Okay, this says write the time. Write 2 ways to say the time. Okay, so here's where it gets a little tricky. Okay, if you see the long hand here pointing at the 9 on number 5, that 9 represents 45. Okay, because each number represents 5. Because if you look real closely, and we zoom in, I'll zoom in really close on this, you will see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, and then back to the big number would be every 5. Okay, back to the number would be 5. So there's 5 minutes in between each number. So we know it's 45 with the long hand's pointing at it. Now the big hand here isn't to the 9 yet. Okay, I'm sorry, the short hand isn't to the 9 yet. So the short hand is between the 8 and 9, so we know it's after 8. Okay, so the 2 ways you could say this, I'm not going to write them down, is you could say 8:45, and you could also say 8:45. Okay, because if you look at quarters here, and I'll do this in red ink, a clock can be cut into 4 corners. Hopefully they look better than this. Okay, a clock can be cut into 4 quarters. Okay, here's a quarter after, okay, in blue, because it's 15 minutes. So every 15 minutes is a quarter, because a quarter means a fourth. So a quarter after the hour would be here. 2/4 after, or half, would be there. 3/4 or a quarter till would be here. We don't normally say 3/4 after 8. We would say it's a quarter till 9, meaning it's 15 minutes until you get to 9. That's what they say when they say a quarter to 9. Okay, so the next one here, we have the longhand on the 6, which would be 30. Okay, the shorthand is after the 6, closer to the 7, so we know it's 6:30. Because as that longhand keeps going, it's going to move the shorthand right on the 7 once you get to the 12 for the longhand. Two ways you could say this are 6:30, and I guess you could say 30 minutes after 6. That's two ways you could say the time. Next one, number 7. If you look at the longhand, it's pointing at the 3. Okay, hopefully you know that the 3 represents 5, 10, 15 minutes. So it's 3:15. And if you look at the big hand, it's after the 3, but not quite to the 4. So it's telling you it's at 3:15. And as that long hand goes around until it gets back up to the 12, this shorthand will move a little bit slower and slower until it gets on the 4. Okay, it's 3:15. One way you could say it is 3:15 or a quarter after 3, because we're talking 1/4, 1/4 after 3. Once it hit 3 o'clock, we've won a quarter after 3. Okay, so that's why it's 3:15, because we go quarters, because 15, 30, 45, then back to 0. All right, next one. We have the longhand pointing at the 9, which represents 45. Shorthand is on the 2, almost to the 3, so it's not quite 3. Remember that it has to be on or after to be the time. Okay, so right now it's after the 2, but it's not on the 3, so it's 2:45. One way to say it would be 2:45. Another one is we have 15 minutes until, let's see, we have a quarter until it gets to 3. So you could say a quarter to 3. Okay, next one. We have the big hand on the 6, which represents 30. And notice the shorthand is between the 1 and 2, so it's after the 1, so it's 1:30. I'm not really sure what they're looking for when it says name two ways, but you could say 1:30 or 30 minutes after 1 or 30 minutes until 2. Okay, because you're right in half. Next one is the small hand is at the almost to the 5. It's not at the 5 yet, and it's not past the 5. So it can't be 5. It has to be 4 something. And we know the big hand is pointing to the 9, so it's 45. So you could say 4:45, or you could say a quarter till 5, because it's almost to 5. In 15 more minutes, in 1/4 of an hour longer, that big hand's going to move and be pointing right at the 5. Next one, we have the long hand is pointing to the 3, so that would be 15, because it's 5, 10, 15. The shorthand is pointing on the 12, and it's going past the 12, so it must be 12:15. It's not 1, it's not 11, it's on the 12 or after. So one way you could say is 12:15. Another way you could say it's a quarter after 12. Okay? And the last one, we have the large hand on the 9, which would represent 45. The small hand is on the 10, past the 10, but it's not to 11 yet, so you know it's 10:45. So one way you could say is 10:45, and the other way you could say is a quarter to 11. Quarter to 11. Okay, so if it's 10:45, you know it's a quarter of the way to 11. All right. So I'm going to quickly look over these next 3 pages. This one asked you, so these are the ways they're talking. So when it says 7:30, okay, I see. I guess I should have looked at that before. So 9:15, we know that the large hand is going to have to point at the 15, and then the short hand would be pointing, it would pretty much be right on the 9, maybe a little bit after. And I'm sorry, but I lost my stylus, so I'm using my finger for this right now. So, next one, 7:30. So let's put the shorthand on the 7, or just past it. And then put the long hand at the 6. Wow, this is really bad. I'm so sorry. On the 6, because that would show 30 minutes past 7. Not to 8, 30 minutes past 7. So, the next 4 I want you to do on your own. Number 19 is to complete the table. 3:15 a.m. would it be light or dark? What part of the day is? Remember, a.m. is morning. PM is night. Okay, so I want you to work on those. Next page, we're going to 5 minutes. So you're going to go every 5 minutes on this. So it says write the time on a digital clock, then show and say how to say it. Okay, so we're going to 5 minutes. So this should be pretty simple. Just we're not doing 15 minutes anymore. We're doing 5. So first one, we're on the 11. The 11 represents 55 because 1 equals 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, and we don't say 60, we say 0, because 60 means it's a full hour, 60 minutes. So the big hand's pointing at the 11, so it's 55. The 9 is pretty much right at the 9, but it's not quite there yet. So it's still 8:55. Some people might say, oh, it's 9:55 here, but it's not. If it was 9:55, that means it's really, really close to 10. So that shorthand would have to be really, really close to 10. Instead, it's really, really close to 9. So that tells you it's 8:55. So I'm going to let you work on the rest on your own. This is something we'll work on in small group. Same thing with this page. You're going to go to the 1 minute. So each little line's 1 minute. So it's going to be tough. You have to really look at it. The first one I'll do for you. You have the big hand's on the 56 because you know the 11's 55. One more is 56. And then remember, it's so close to a full hour, that small hand's pointing at the 3, so you would think it's 3:56. But it can't be 3:56 because that 3:56 means it's almost 4. And that big hand's nowhere, or the short hand's nowhere near the 4. So it must be 2:56 here. So sometimes you can just look at it and say, yeah, that can't be 3:56. Because 3:56 would that shorthand would have to be pointing right at the 4 almost. Instead, it's pointing right at the 3. So I'll do one more for you, and I'm gonna let you just kind of finish these pages up on your own. So if you look closely at the long hand here, it goes past the 3. So the 3 means 15 because 5, 10, 15, and 16, 17. And the shorthand is on the 9 on its way to the 10, so it has to be after 9. So this is something we'll work on, not just today. We'll go over more with time in the next coming lessons. So in small group, you continue to work on these. Whatever you don't finish, we'll talk about in small group.